Okay, guys, so this is the second part of my review tutorial. The first part is actually more than 20 minutes. So I hadn't anticipated that it would be that long. But those questions were slightly challenging. These ones are not too bad. So I think I'm going to quickly go over this. It should not take too long. Again, this is not for tomorrow, right? So this is what you'll have to do on Tuesday and Wednesday, and even Thursday, right? Thursday you can ask me questions and then continue working on this, and then your quiz will be on Friday. So you have more than enough time to work on these questions. So let's continue. So we have to factor this completely. So again, guys, whenever you get a trinomial, you should think about product sum, right? So that's the strategy that always works. And sometimes maybe perfect square trinomial, but I don't really see square numbers. But just be careful. Before proceeding, what you should do is just see if there is a GCF that you can factor, right? In this case, there actually is one because there is a number that can divide 6, 14, and 12, and that number is 2, okay? So I'm going to factor the 2, so this becomes 3x squared minus 7x minus 6, right? So let's check. This 2 times 3 give me 6, yeah, and then minus 14 and minus 12, yes. So if you forgot to factor the GCF, right, the 2, it will still work. It's just that you'll have to factor this 2 at the end, which is slightly less obvious, okay? So how does this work? Now I'm gonna use product sum over here, and then just pretend that the 2 does not exist, okay? So you can forget about this 2, but make sure you include the 2 in your final answer. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to um, 3 times negative 6, so that's negative 18, and that add up to minus 7. Okay, so this one seems kind of hard. So again, try because 18 is negative, right? That shows you that one of the numbers has to be negative. So try minus 1 and 18, um, or 1 and minus 18. Both of them will not work. Then go to 2 and 9. Okay, and I think this one will work. So because my sum is negative, right? That means the bigger number has to be negative. So the 9 has to be negative. And my 2, sorry, let me just change that. 2 plus minus 9 is actually minus 7. So this combination works out. So now all you have to do is rewrite this middle term in an intelligent way using the combination, right? Using 2 and negative 9. So let's do that. So let's just keep the 2 on the side. Um, and then let's work our way inside the bracket. So the 3x squared doesn't change. And then I'm going to put plus 2x minus 9x minus 6, right? All I did was I replaced this middle term using 2x and minus 9x, okay? Which is the same thing. So it's both of them still give me minus 7. And then once you have four terms, right, the strategy is to use grouping. So let's do that. So this will, again, just bring the 2 along. So over here, you will have to factor x. So that leaves me with 3x plus 2. Now for this to work, you should get 3x plus 2 over here as well. So what do I need to multiply 3x by to get negative 9x? It's just minus 3. And does minus 3 times 2 give me minus 6? Yes, it does. So that means you've done this correctly. And then you can just factor the 3x plus 2 because it's repeating itself, right? So there's a 3x plus 2 over here, and there's another one over there. And when you factor that, that leaves you with x minus 3. So this will be x minus 3, okay? What you could have also done was you could have just ignored the 2 completely, factor this, and then once you get your answer, you can add the 2 afterwards, right? If the brackets are kind of like confusing you, that's something else that you could have done. So again, it's just a question of preference, however you want to do it. Okay, so this question explicitly is asking you to factor. Okay, so that's why you have to use the factoring technique. Now this one is asking you to simplify. So that means you don't have to factor. Okay, so how do you simplify? Well, because I have a squared on the outside, right? What you have to do is take this square of the first term, so that becomes 25x squared. Then you multiply the terms inside the bracket, right? So 5 times minus 1 is 5x times minus 1 is minus 5x, and then you have to multiply that by 2. So you get minus 10x, and then finally you have to square the second term, right? So minus 1 squared is just plus 1. So this, I was able to expand this. So now let's just distribute the minus 3x over here. So when I distribute that, I get minus 3 times x, which is minus 3x squared, and then minus 3 times minus 4, that's plus 12x. Okay, and then your final step is to just combine your like terms together. So 25x squared minus 3x squared, so that's just 22x squared, and then the minus 10x will combine with plus 12x to give me plus 2x. And then finally, don't forget about the plus 1, okay? So plus 1. Same thing over here, but now you have a binomial multiplication. So you have to take the first term, which is 2x, and then multiply that by the entire second binomial, right? So let's do that. So 2x times 4x plus 1. And then you take the second term and then you multiply by the entire second binomial. So let's do that. Minus 3, 4x plus 1, right? And then, so this is, I've taken care of my binomial multiplication. And after that, it's just minus x times 5x and then minus x times 6. So this just becomes minus 5x squared and then minus 6x. Now some of you like to do this separately and then combine them together. I'm just doing it in one step. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's just a question of preference, okay? So now you have to distribute the 2x, right? So this becomes 8x squared plus 2x, and then you distribute the minus 3. So this becomes minus 12x minus 3, and then minus 5x squared minus 6x. Okay, oops. Let me just get rid of this. I don't know how to get rid of this. So let's just leave it here. I guess I am maybe here. Okay. Minus 6x. Again, once you get rid of your brackets, right, your goal is to combine your like terms together. So the 8x squared will combine with minus 5x squared. The 2x will combine with minus 12x and minus 6x. And I think there's only one constant term, right, which is minus 3. So let's just combine them together. So 8x squared minus 5x squared, that's just 3x squared. And then 2 minus 12, that's minus 10. And then minus 6, that's minus 16x. And then finally minus 3 all by itself, okay? Again, for some of you, you might do this a little differently. As long as you get these answers, you should be okay, okay? So now let's go on to the next question. Okay, these ones are kind of tricky. So here they are asking you what number n will make this factorable, okay? So what does n have to be for you, for it to be possible to factor this trinomial, okay? So it seems like a hard question, but it isn't. Because again, all you have to do is remember it's a trinomial. How do you factor trinomial? Using product sum, right? So if you don't see the coefficient of x squared, remember it's 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 1 times negative 10, which is negative 10, and they have to add up to my x coefficient, which is n, okay? So they have to add up to n. So there's more than one possible answer for this, right? So how do you get a product of negative 10? Well, you could just say minus 1 times 10. Minus 1 times 10 gives me minus 10. So that means minus 1 plus 10 is equals to n. So n is then, if you simplify this, right? So n is equals to minus 1 plus 10, which is just equals to 9. Okay, so n equals to 9 will work. You could also try 2 and 5, right? So 2 times 5 gives me 10. And you can pick either one to be negative. So let's say if I pick the 5 to be negative, okay? So that means 2 plus negative 5 is equals to n. So n is just equal, so you just have to simplify this, right? So 2 plus negative 5 is just minus 3, right? So n has to equals to minus 3. That will also work, okay? What else can, yeah, so I think there's like at least 4 possible answers that I can think of, okay? So just find a combination that essentially satisfies this equation, and then using that combination, you can find your n value, okay? It could either be this one. Again, over here, your 10 could have been negative, okay? If your 10 was negative, then your 1 would have been positive. Then the value of n would have been minus 9, right? If you work it out. Same thing over here. If the 2 was negative, then this n value will actually be 3, okay? So there's 4 possible answers that I can think of. So this question looks hard, but it isn't, okay? So in a similar fashion, I think I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try doing the next one, okay? So again, it's a trinomial, so I have to rely on product sum. So so remember, the coefficient is not visible, it's just 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that have to multiply to 1 times negative n. 1 times negative n is just negative n. And they have to add up to minus 4, right? The minus 4 comes from here. So two numbers that add up to minus 4. Pick any two numbers that add up to minus 4. So let's say minus 2 and 6. Okay, so minus 2, sorry, not minus 2 and 6. Well, let's just go with minus 2 and minus 2. Let's just keep it simple. 6, negative 6 and 2 would have worked, not minus 2 and 6. So minus 2 and minus 2 gives me 4. So that means minus n is equals to minus 2 times minus 2, right? So minus n is equals to minus 2 times minus 2, which is equals to 4. So if minus n is equals to 4, then n has to equals to minus 4. Okay, so that's one combination that will work. Again, there's more than one possible answer. Okay, so, right, so how is this question different from this one? Well, here you know what the sum is equals to. Okay, you know that the sum is equals to -4. Over here, you knew what the product is equals to. So if you know what the sum is equals to, then find a combination that satisfies this equation. I chose -2 and -2. You could have chosen -6 and 2. You could have chosen anything. Okay, you could have chosen -1 and -3. So once you find the combination on top will be exactly the same thing, right? So if you have -2 and -2 in the bottom over here, then on top you have to have the same numbers, okay? So it's just a question of finding the combination that satisfies this equation and then using the same combination up here and then just solving for n, okay? Using a little bit of algebra. So again, more than one possible answer. This is typically a multiple choice question. Um, so hopefully this kind of made sense to you. If it did not, then again, I will be available on Thursday. So try talking to your friends. If it still does not make sense, then we can go over this on Thursday. Okay. So now the next question. After multiplying 7x minus 1 and 2x minus 5, the coefficient of the x term will be nx. What is the value of that? Okay, so let's just multiply this out and simplify. So we have 7x minus 1 times 2x minus 5, right? So it's a product of two binomials. So let's take the first term and let's multiply that by the entire second binomial. Okay, so this is just 7x times 2x minus 5. And then the second term, which is minus 1, times 2x minus 5. Okay, so when you distribute this over, you get 7 times 2, that's 14. X times x is x squared. And then 7x times 5 is minus 35. And then there's an x, and then minus 1. So let's distribute the minus 1. So this becomes minus 2x and then plus 5. Okay. So when you simplify this, you can combine your like terms together, right? So the only like terms that I see are these ones. So this becomes 14x squared minus 37x plus 5. So they are asking you to find the coefficient of the x term that looks like nx. So the coefficient of the x term over here is minus 37, okay? So what is the value of n? That means n is just equals to um, minus 37, okay? So it's just the coefficient of your x term. Moving on. Okay, so this is the area question. So I'm going to break this video now into 3 parts. I'm going to stop here. So this question and this question, they're kind of like the same thing. I think this question is a little bit more challenging. So I've given you this easier version first, and we're just going to extend that logic to this question. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and then I'll make one more video, and that will be it. Okay.